Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Kokora in TCG, and this month, again, just like every month, we'll be talking about the Vanguard Zero meta. For this one, it's set 20. Before we get into this though, we have 4 very simple rules that we must go over before we do this. The tier list guidelines. Now, first and foremost, I am just one person on the internet talking about PNG cards. If a deck that you like isn't well represented on the tier list, or I just don't think very highly of a deck that you really enjoy playing, that's totally okay, and it's normal. Number 2, not every deck will be represented at all on the tier list just because there's too many unique and different concepts in Zero. We can't fit it all in one YouTube video. Now, if there is a deck or a deck concept you guys want me to talk about, kind of similar to the Aquaforce video we did last week, you guys can let me know in the comments below and I can try to fit it in on that monthly video schedule. Number 3, tier lists are described in proximity. So A tier, or your S tier is probably going to be at the top. So A tier is closer to S tier and C tier is a lot further from S tier. So think of it that way. Don't think of things in a vacuum. Number 4, play whatever the heck you want. This is an opinion piece, a discussion starter, not an end all be all, and it's just my opinion. So let's get into the tier list. Okay guys, so this is the C tier. Again, these decks are not in order. They are not. Do not think that, please. They're more sorted by concept. So you have things like Angel Feathers, which if they did more stuff, right, they would feel like a stronger deck, but they're consistent. They just don't do enough to really move up the tiers. We got Murakumo, their card pull is weak, their Legion is weak. We need those buffs. Bushy, please stop doing this with event clans. We got Witches, they'll get buffed, they'll move up, but for the meantime, they are here. And then of course we have stuff like Great Nature and Dimension Police, which on a bad day feel, in this tier. On a really good day, they kind of feel A to S tier, it feels a little easier to pilot them. But overall, they just struggle to be consistent at what they do. DP has the restand, DP has a crit, Great Nature has great restand and draw engine, but it does not matter because it is still not consistent enough for some odd reason. Again, fun decks. I actually really enjoy both of these clans a lot in Zero, but it's kind of struggle bus. So you got to work really hard for your wins. Yeah, we have the B tier here. So we have things kind of sorted by strategy here. So you have more defensive decks in B tier, like your Pale Moon and your Oracle Think Tank, your like Battle Sisters variants. The Battle Sister variants are quite consistent, I would say, like kind of on par with Risers. I think Risers are fairly consistent. And they also have Tom, which helps them out this month. Otherwise I would definitely rate them a lot lower, but Tom, especially with the elephant in the room being played absolutely everywhere, helps out a lot. Pale Moon restanders are a lot popular now, at least this month, because this deck can get slapped by restanding decks. So Dreamy Fortress, Legion, Loop strategy is a little stronger this month. Risers, they're okay. They're just okay. Astaroth kind of does what Risers does, just doesn't have the restanding side of the engine, but you gotta soul charge a lot to get there. This isn't a bad deck. It's actually quite good, and if you don't prepare for it, you will get swept really quickly. And then Aquaforce, we just talked about this last week. Again, the deck isn't bad, it's just high effort for low to average rewards, so you're really putting in a lot for very little when comparing to stuff up here. Okay, so next we have the A tier. These are kind of fringe picks, if I'm gonna be honest with you guys. And most of the time these feel like counter picks, although they don't have, like, at least 2 of the decks in this tier have pretty good matchups. Sook doesn't have the best matchup spread anymore because decks are just faster than it, but if a deck's really good at getting PGs, there's a couple of decks like that, then Sook can be that deck for you to help close the gap. And it's still playable, it's just a lot more effort to get what we used to get 4 months ago or 5 months ago. Spike Brothers, new deck, very good, still high rolly. I do think that they have a better matchup spread than Blau, so and I think they're a better long-term investment over Blau. I mean, Blau will always be good, but this can fight against everything. Blau doesn't fight against LJ, it crawls and struggles against LJ, so if you want something with a little bit more even matchup spread, you can go for something like Spikes. And then like Blau is definitely that token restanding deck that people are playing right now to deal with these decks that can draw a bunch of PGs. Again, when you see decks like these in the meta, you're gonna see stuff like Pale Moon come out the woodwork. The OTTs might be able to do a little something because they're pretty good at drawing PGs and getting around that. And that's the A tier. Origami mains, I am so sorry. I almost forgot to put you guys on the tier list. This is future Kokorin TCG telling you guys your deck is real. If you're playing Narukami right now, it's probably a good choice. It just does pretty well. I feel like its mid game is a little weak right now. I feel like that is its biggest issue. It's early game, you know, it's got the combos. It's late game, it's got the combos, but mid game feels lacking compared to some of these other decks. But as long as you can circumvent that with good plays, I think the deck's great. Anyways, let's get back to the rest of the tier list. All right, so here's the S tier. I will say I do think Golds is at the top of S tier, but I don't think that they're too far off from S+. Like everything else is below Golds. They're not really in any order after Golds. So we got LJ, they got a bunch of new support. You got a grade 2, the Photon on place, CB2 to lock something that's extremely good. A bunch of new legions, like the Garnet Star is really good, the Planetary, Imaginary Plane Dragon is really good. They got a new Break Ride, which if you don't like Infinite Zero, it's a little cheaper, so I always take the cheap skills. So again, great card pool. Less Ezel around because Ezel just doesn't work against most of the other decks in the meta. It's a good time. Genesis, not quite one of the queens or kings of the meta this month, but still very strong, and they got more toys to play with. You can do like a Regalia focused build. You could do a Regalia with witches. I do think that as long as you're playing the Yggdrasil and like some part of the Regalia engine, the good part, then you'll probably win games more often. We got Pale Moon. It was nerfed, but it was not destroyed. It's still a real deck. It's still PG checks like no one's business. You just got to work a little bit harder. It's not brain dead. Seekers. Seekers, will I ever put this in top tier? I don't know. These are like on the cusp. These two decks, like they're very good. Don't let my S tier placement fool you. You will get clapped by these decks on a regular basis, or you're playing it and you're clapping people. Seekers is very good. Restanders, it's just a little clunky with CB and resources. And Golds, they do everything, but they do feel slightly weaker. The last couple months, the one complaint I've been hearing from top players, not just something I've noticed myself, I like slower paced decks, but they say that Golds feel a little slower tempo wise than your Kagaros and your even like Seekers feels a little faster than Golds. It's kind of weird to think about. So that's like their one thing, I guess, right now, is they're a little slow, but they got every tool in the game they need to win against every single matchup except for Elephant in the Room. Yeah, this deck, yeah, not a good matchup. Okay, and here is the S+ tier. I only have 3 decks, so this is a dynamic 3 or terrifying 3. That's what we'll call it this month. We have Perditions. Now you can play Perdition, the Vortex, with your DO. You can play it with your Novell. There's a lot of ways you can play it, and it will work. When we get the Great, you'll have even more options to play the deck, and I think that's super interesting. So it's a very flexible list. It got Mass Retire. It's got ways to clear a board through Resist. It's got ways to restand and gain resources if you want to play the Dote. It does everything. It's just a little piece reliant. Not as bad as Aquaforce, but just a little bit. Next, we have Shadow Paladin, which was the best deck last month, and it's still very good. Searches PG, PBA restand is a very real... It's that turn is always scary when you see the PBA over the Mortured Phantom. They're probably going to win. And then, yeah, Bermuda Triangle. I don't think I need to say anything here, so we're just going to leave it at that. Best deck in the format. If you don't think so, you're wrong. Anyways, that's the tier list today, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, but only if you really enjoyed the content today. And also let me know what you think of my tier list in comments below. This is Kokorin TCG, signing off.